Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining Convequity Spaces chat. I am Simon Herf here from Convequity, and today we are joined by Persian Capital on the topics related to Lunar, Terra, and the UST. We will briefly cover what happened and what's the future for Terra. And feel free to drop us questions or request to speak. We will periodically allow you to ask questions. So without further ado, let's begin. So a bit of introduction about myself. So I'm Simon He from Convequity. We are a equity analyst firm specialized in covering cybersecurity, enterprise technology, and cryptocurrencies in general. So, Persian Capital, maybe you can introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, sure. My first name is Amin, so you can call me Persian Capital or Amin, whatever you prefer. And I have a little bit of background in traditional finance. I'm into equities, and just recently, the last few months, I was really into DeFi. For many years, I've been aware of Bitcoin and crypto. Of course, I've used Bitcoin since 2012, but just to do transactions. I've never considered it an investment. But recently, I really got interested in stable coins and DeFi, and I was playing around with it. And then, well, all of a sudden, we all know what happened 2 weeks ago when UST collapsed. Yeah.
Interesting. So you kind of traded Bitcoin back in 2012.
I never really traded Bitcoin, so I in 2012 there was. I got a call. Can you hear me?
Oh, sorry.
Testing 1 2.
I missed you.
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you right now.
Testing. Yeah, I received a call and I rejected it. So, yeah, in 2012, I bought some stuff on the Silk Road market. If you've heard of that darknet market.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and I back in the day we had to use Bitcoin for that, and Bitcoin was considered like an anonymous cryptocurrency. Nowadays, all the darknet markets have moved on to Monero. Bitcoin is never used anymore for that. Yeah.
So you were kind of using Bitcoin. Is that in other countries to avoid the kind of censorship, or what's your purpose?
Yeah, sure. I was just ordering some drugs for personal use for parties with my friends, and I grew up in the Netherlands, so it's very open here. I don't care to disclose it or something. In the Netherlands, it's pretty normal. So I just bought like small amounts of like experimental drugs that we took at parties with my friends, and that's it. And back
that
then,
was the very wild day of Bitcoin trading.
Yeah, and back then, almost no one considered it as an investment. Everyone, the people who were on the darknet markets, they were pretty interesting and technical people, and it was like a libertarian's dream where you can just buy and sell things. And we just bought a little bit of Bitcoin. Like if you wanted to buy, like let's say $10 worth of wheat, you would buy $10 worth of Bitcoin. You're not gonna. No one saw it as an investment back then.
Yeah. So back then, so originally your use case with Bitcoin isn't about investment, but it's just about a medium of exchange.
Exactly. We actually used it as a currency. That is so strange now. No one is using cryptocurrencies as currencies anymore.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
And can I ask your experiences with cryptocurrencies and if you've ever had it? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I first heard of Bitcoin like back in 2011, and I wasn't really interested in doing kind of buying anything, but I was a very hardcore computer enthusiast, so very interesting building out my high performance PC. But after building it, you cannot find any realistic use. You can do kind of scientific computing, or you can play the latest game, but there isn't too much you can do with your compute. And then I found out that there are some distributed scientific projects whereby you can contribute your computer power to do help search new drugs and help search alien from massive amount of data. And then noticed Bitcoin, whereby you can use your idle compute capacity to generate Bitcoin, and then you can take some return back of your investment of your computer hardware. So that was my first time heard of Bitcoin, but I wasn't really noticed its kind of economic value. And then my first time of buying Bitcoin was then in 2017. That was the kind of the second bull market for Bitcoin, as I can recall. And it was also the time when Ethereum really kicked off. That summer of 2017, they supported a kind of an infrastructure for ICO, whereby everyone can basically issue their token, and yeah, they kicked the entire market off, and then gradually see how the things unfold. We then had a super big bear market with Bitcoin and Ethereum in 2020, and then surprisingly, with the physical and the monetary stimulus in the late 2022, we suddenly came into a bull market, and tons of kind of elusive, fraudulent behavior started to appear. So that got my notice. But also the kind of the growth of DeFi industry overall is very fascinating to me. Although we cover kind of enterprise technology, but I think the cryptocurrency itself is such an interesting topic to cover for every technology analyst. But for me, I just find it hard that it will be popularized to the population at large for the moment. We still have a long way to go. So that's my sense.
I see. So you were an early miner in 2017, and you sold it right away as you were mining it. Is that correct?
Well, I just mined it for fun, and then I just lose my hard disk. So I wasn't really aware of the value of it. I just play it. I can use the idle capacity of my compute power to do something fun. So yeah, so it's a very different mindset back now and then. I think nowadays people understand the value of Bitcoin, and it's very different back in 2011 also.
Yeah, and when you say nowadays people understand the value of Bitcoin, what do you think the value of Bitcoin is?
Yeah, that's a very interesting topic. I think, yeah, I think it's a pretty good segue into our discussion about Luna. I think Bitcoin right now, I think it's something like investing in Tesla or many other technology stocks, whereby the bull will have their own narrative, which is very extreme, and then the bear will have their own narrative, which is to the other end of the extreme. But the truth is probably somewhere in between. So for Bitcoin, I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist, but I'm also not a minimalist. I think Bitcoin has its own value in terms of kind of replacing the gold, the digital gold narrative for Bitcoin. But I also don't think Bitcoin will be taking over the entire economy as the only currency. So that's my general stance. What about you, Persian? I mean,
Yeah, sure. So you mentioned that that some people, or maybe yourself even, could consider Bitcoin as a new digital gold. It's an interesting narrative. I've heard from many friends of mine who are very much into Bitcoin, the explanations, but so far I haven't truly been convinced of it yet. Um, I could be wrong, of course, and I hope everyone understands. I'm by no means an expert on cryptocurrencies or even investing in general. But if enough people believe that Bitcoin is the new gold and it's like a digital gold, then it could become something like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if people believe that you should buy crypto when inflation is going up or when there's other insecurities going on in the world, then it could behave um, in a way that it actually works like that. But personally, I don't see why it would. It's just like random numbers mined by a GPU. So to me, it
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
make any sense. Like I
yeah, yeah.
understand
I think
equities. Like yeah, okay, go ahead.
yeah, I think it's actually a very valid question. I think maybe we will leave it to the end of the discussion. Maybe we can start with the Terra and then go gradually going back into the Bitcoin and
Absolutely,
discussing
yeah.
about yeah. So maybe we can start with you. I mean, in your opinion, what happened with Terra, and can you kind of give your narrative around it?
Yeah, sure. So I just want to say again that I am no expert on what happened, and there might be people closer to it who know a lot more, and I hope maybe later we'll have some time to have those people speak up. So from what it seems right now is that Terra was a company that had the Terra blockchain, of course, and they had the UST stablecoin and the Luna cryptocurrency, and
Yeah,
that's the main UST stablecoin was depecked due to an external attack, an outside attacker who wanted it to depeck and who attacked it in order to depeck it and profit from it. So that's my perception from some things I've read right now. It could be true, it could be not true. There might be more facts coming out in the coming days and weeks. There's also some people who considered it a Ponzi. I'm not so sure about that. There's people who consider Do Kwon a scammer and that he intended to deceive people. I'm also not convinced of that. So from now on, at least for now, I think it declined due to an outside attack.
right, right. Yeah, my sense about it is that the Do Kwon, the founder of Terra, I think he kind of started with a good intention, but I think the system is kind of poorly designed, and also at the benefit of hindsight, it's kind of ironic for me to see that days before this epic downfall, he himself was tweeting that the system is very robust and we will get through it no matter what. So this is kind of a peak buoyancy in my perspective. And going back to what happened with Terra Luna USDT, from my perspective, it is about the mechanism. So they were trying to create a kind of new transaction system, which is based on the blockchain technology. They kind of copied the idea from Bitcoin and Ethereum, and they kind of went on to do their own kind of the Korean version of Bitcoin, and the kind of copy the system that you used back in 2012 with the Bitcoin plus Silk Road. And obviously now this time is it has more KYC, know your customer control. They want to make it more transparent. And yeah, there are numerous attempts to do stable coin, to make a decentralized currency to make it pegged to the fiat currency. Right now, it is United States US dollar. But the first generation of kind of stable coin, they were kind of one-to-one backed. You have to pay $1 to get one US dollar token. So that was kind of USDT, the Teller organization. And then we got over collateralized tokens like MakerDAO. I actually was fortunate enough to join one of their early presentations back in 2018 in Copenhagen. And I was very impressed. But I just thought that the idea is pretty limited within a few number of people who can really understand how the system could work. And then now in 2021, we saw the sudden epic rise of Terra. And I think um, the entire system is highly leveraged. So when the system is going up, you have people buying Luna and get it um, transmitted into UST, which is their native US dollar token. And then if you have more and more inflow, you will eventually bid the Luna price up. So that's the virtual cycle when you have the positive inflow. But when you have the negative inflow, when everyone is getting out of Terra, you have the sudden decrease in the Luna value, and then the entire system just suddenly breaks. Is that what you're seeing as well? I mean,
Yeah, that's my perception of it as well. And there were right now we have the hindsight of looking back on it, and it's everyone is coming out of the closet and saying, yeah, of course it failed and whatever. But if we just rewind one month ago, there were very few voices who had this opinion that there was this vulnerability, that it could depeg, that it could at some point have a death spiral if the price of both Luna and UST were to decline together. And I had I had a tiny bit of money in UST itself. I don't consider myself highly victimized or something, because
right.
luckily for me it was a very little bit of money, but it was still enough for me to at that time to research it. I joined the official Terra Discord. I was asking questions there for a few weeks, and always when I have an idea, I want to look for the counter argument. So just a simple example, like if you want to buy an iPhone, it's good to Google what makes iPhone bad. Why does iPhone suck? If you want to go to Italy, you want to maybe Google why I hated my vacation in Italy. And
Yeah,
if I want
exactly.
to invest in UST or in Anchor Protocol, I try to Google what are the risks of Anchor Protocol, what are the problems with UST, how likely is it that UST could depeg and whatever. So I was Googling certain things. I was starting to follow people on Twitter who were tweeting about this. And I did see a few voices that were skeptical and that pointed out that there was a possibility of a death spiral. And I even linked it in the official Discord, and I said, "Hey guys, these people are warning that there could be a death spiral and blah blah." And the admins tried to explain to me why that wasn't the case, why it was safe to dismiss those warnings. Now, in their defense, I don't think they were trying to scam me or deceive me. I think they truly believed that those warnings were not worthy of being, of taking seriously. So yeah, there were a few people who might have saw this coming, but they were very, very few people, and it wasn't always easy to understand the mechanics of how it would work
Yeah,
too. So that's why a lot of smart people, I don't consider myself that smart, but a lot of people who know a lot about cryptocurrencies, they felt that UST was very safe. It was like the equivalent of a bank account.
yeah,
If you have
exactly.
$100,000 in your bank account, no one is gonna, if it suddenly collapses or something, which is almost impossible, no one is gonna tell you like, hey, you should have diversified, you idiot. It's your own fault. So in Terra UST, people felt it was like the equivalent, and that's why many people had like almost everything they had just sitting in UST. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very ironic for me to see that um, before the downfall of Terra and the UST, basically every institutional investor was kind of cherishing and praising the innovation there, and then suddenly after the downfall, they just changed their stance and say, "Well, we were wrong this time," and it's just very ironic for me to see. Maybe previously it was just the price, the high price justifies the high price itself, and now the price is going down, and they were kind of creating a new narrative. But the truth is really somewhere in between. I think they made some great innovation and they did something wrong, and they just didn't have the kind of intellectual capacity to accept that they were kind of wrong. But at the same time, I think we have a couple of few data points. So actually, I think they were aware of this kind of death spiral before it happened, because they were kind of trying to raise the Lunar Foundation God with like 80 more than 80,000 bitcoins worth like more than 3.2 billion US dollars to kind of create a reserve, a cushion when the better time comes. And but it's very ironic again talking about the numbers. The date when they had that massive devaluation and the depegging, if you think about the total issuance of UST, it was going down from like 18 billion to 14 billion. So they had that initial 4 billion outflow which shouldn't be a big number considering the amount of reserve that they had with Bitcoin and the various tokens. But it just suddenly went down and the death spiral continued, even if they put that more than $3 billion worth of Bitcoin into work. So it's pretty strange for me to see. And obviously, I don't think the conspiracy theory makes sense at all. Like big guys like Citadel Securities, the market makers, they were kind of attacking Terra. I personally don't think that makes sense. What about you? I mean,
Yeah, I agree completely. Like this conspiracy theory that Citadel and BlackRock teamed together to take down UST, I think it's most likely utter nonsense. And this rumor was spread on 4chan at a time right when it depecked. So you had tens of thousands of people who had no idea what's going on, and everyone is searching for information on the internet. And so this rumor was posted at the perfect time where it could spread and go viral. If the same rumor was spread right now, I don't think it would go viral, because right now we have a lot more information and data and facts about what has happened in the past 2 weeks. But this rumor, it just doesn't make sense. And I think both BlackRock and Citadel already made an official statement denying it. BlackRock is $100 billion company. Like, if they deny it, they would be lying. Why would they be putting their reputation on the line? I think Fatman tweeted about this as well. It just doesn't make sense. If they were behind it, they should admit it, but I don't think they were, and it's such a nasty thing to do. You would be ruining your own reputation forever for a little bit of money, a one-time
yeah,
payoff. So yeah.
yeah, exactly. And BlackRock is more of a passive investor. They were kind of the asset accumulator. Their asset under management is more than 10 trillion right now, I guess. They weren't really doing kind of active investment over kind of arbitrage opportunities like this kind of the packing event. So yeah, but at the same time, it's very interesting. I think this is a very good point because basically the depegging is like a bank run. So you are kind of suspecting that your bank doesn't have money in their account, and you have to get out your cash as soon as possible. So once you have that kind of sentiment going on, then everyone will be crushing the price, even if you are kind of defending the peg. It doesn't matter anymore because the sentiment is right there. Is that what you are saying?
I think so. Yeah, it seems like the attacker didn't need to fully depeg it all the way to zero. He just need to depeg it a little bit and cause a lot of fear in the markets, so that other people will then almost voluntarily help him and take their money out of UST and go to another safer asset. And then, if they do that, if sufficient amount of dollars are leaving the ecosystem, then the rest is going to happen automatically, and it's going to fully depeg, and you'll have a death spiral.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm very curious about what you're investigating with Fatman. Any kind of interesting insight right now for you?
What I'm investigating, well, Fatman is doing all the heavy lifting. Like, he's doing the actual investigating. I'm not doing much. And on Twitter, at least, I suddenly gained a lot of Twitter followers, and that was because I read Fatman's post on the official Terra forum, where he had a proposal, and I really liked that proposal. And it seemed like he had done quite a bit of research. He had a bunch of numbers ready, and he had written his proposal very well. And I hadn't read about it on Twitter, so I thought I'm gonna write a Twitter thread and just summarize Fatman's proposal. And I did that, and next thing you know, it quickly went viral. Vitalik retweeted it, and a bunch of other billionaires and respected crypto people retweeted it, and so now it seems as if so again, like, I'm a crypto skeptic. I'm absolutely no expert on cryptocurrencies, but because I crafted this thread and it accidentally went viral, I gained a lot of crypto followers. And yeah, I've been following Fatman, of course. I'm very happy. Like, the community should be so happy with him. He's doing so much, like almost like an investigative journalist. He's like a machine. It's just incredible. And from what I can tell, it seems like I've also been in the Discord very early on.
Yeah.
He's posting there every day, and with every small decision he makes, it seems you can tell from his communication that he always tries to maintain his integrity. It's maybe hard to judge because we don't even know who he is. We don't know that much about him. But just from his communication style, I think that I can trust him. Yeah.
Right. And do you see that kind of it is the Terra community overall kind of readjusting their perception right now? Are they kind of still in the stage of rejection, or are they kind of accepting the fact and move on?
In the holders of Terra and Luna, you see a lot of different voices. Some people call it a Ponzi, and they wanna go after Do Kwon and destroy him and something like that. Other people, they are a little bit more nuanced. They just want their money back, and they feel deceived, but they're not sure if they have all the answers. And but you see a lot of different voices. There's also people, all the Luna holders. Many of them are calling for Luna to be burned. You saw that in every reply in the last 2 weeks as well. So there's a lot of different segments.
Yeah, it's super strange. And I just saw that they kind of proposed Terra 2.0 just a few hours ago, right? And they were kind of trying to revive Lunar, but not UST. To me, that's a very strange decision because previously they had the chance to really defend the pack. But right now they just burned all of their reserve, and now they wanted to revive Luna. What you are saying?
You know, it might be sensible for them to work on a new Terra, like a version 2 of the ecosystem. But what the thing that does not make sense to me is that they are constantly tweeting about a version 2. I think. And when it first started depegging, I thought, maybe I'm stupid, okay, but I thought Do Kwon, we hadn't heard from him in the first few days for a while, and everyone was waiting for him to tweet something. A lot of UST holders had lost their money and were very anxious. And I thought Do Kwon will come out and he's gonna say on Twitter like, "Hey everyone, I fucked up so badly. I've been arrogant. I've been dismissing some threats. My main goal in life is gonna be to return the money and make all UST holders whole again, and make sure that any money we have is gonna come right back to you so that you can get your money back." But no, I was wrong. Almost all the tweets are about promoting version 2. It seems a little bit out of taste. Like people are committing suicide, people lost their life savings, people in some very impoverished countries where, they barely make any money, where people from the, I got hundreds of DMs from second and third world countries where people are earning like $10 a day of working in the sun all day, and they lost all their life savings. And it seems very unsympathetic of Do Kwon to not be addressing that. And as so far that he did address it, it was in a few like random tweets buried in some thread or something. It doesn't seem to be his main focus. So I don't know much about the Terra version 2, and it could be the sensible move forward, but his main focus should be to make UST holders whole. That's what I feel.
Yeah,
That's first, and then
exactly. I
version
think
2 comes after.
yeah, I think he made a very bad crisis management in terms of choosing the priority and really stepping up during the most critical time. And yeah, maybe we can we are seeing one speaker request from privacy. So listeners, you can click on the request if you have any questions. So privacy, do you have any question to say? Right. It seems like maybe we can continue. If you guys have any question, just feel free to speak. And continuing on the topic related to the crisis management and the objective, choosing Luna or UST, I think it again is a very strange choice. It seems like UST wasn't part of integrative part of Luna, so they chose it over Luna over UST. Is that right?
Yeah, the UST was a pretty core part of the Terra ecosystem, and with a lot of blockchains, you have to pay the gas fees in the native blockchains token. So on the Ethereum blockchains, you need ETH to pay for gas fees. You cannot use Bitcoin to pay for gas fees on the Ethereum chain. You need ETH for that. On the Terra chain, you can pay gas fees both with Luna or with UST. And Terra had something like, I don't know, maybe over 20 stablecoins. That's also something that I really liked about Terra, is that they didn't just have UST, they had a fuck ton of stablecoins. One pegged to the British pound, and another one to the Malaysian currency and Filipino currency, and the euro, and they had so many currencies covered, and they had so many stablecoins. It seemed very inclusive to me, which is, if you want to diversify in different currencies, that seemed like a good way to do it. But yeah, UST was vital at the core of the Terra system. If anyone wants to come up and say something or ask a question, feel free. I'm not a co-host, but
Hi guys.
I hope Simon can help me. Hello.
Hi guys.
Hello.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Hi. I'm Vitaly, Ukraine. I lost a lot of money of my life savings like everybody else, and it's pretty painful for me like for others. But we are just speaking about Duke One, and then searching some things that he done were not very well. But if you think he is not Korean, just South Korean, but North Korean, it changed everything for me. Because explain for me a lot of things he done. I just wanted to ask you, well, how do you think who was the main in favor of this situation, and if it's possible to just to estimate how much money was made with the leverage trading, with the shorting Luna along all the exchanges or something like that, just to estimate how many money people make. That's my question.
Well, I was asking how many money the short seller made during the crash of Luna, right?
Yeah.
I think if you think about from the kind of total market cap perspective, the market cap for Luna before the crash was like 40 billion US dollars, and then obviously you have a couple of your flows. My kind of gut feeling is like it's about 3 to 4 billion US dollars, but it really depends, and it's not that easy to do the short selling because this is the cryptocurrency. This is not a centralized exchange whereby you can just place your short selling order. Every short selling order has to be matched with a long order. So if you don't have any long order within the Luna exchange, then you cannot do too much selling. So yeah, overall, I think it's not a huge selling from any particular institution, but the opportunity is obviously right there because the moment when the UST depegged from 1 to 1 with US dollar, it means that you can make money by just buying UST and then switch it to Luna and then sell the newly minted Luna at a lower price. So it's just a spiral. Right. So maybe we can going back to Amin about talking about Terra. I'm very curious about what's your user experience with Terra actually. Is it a better platform as I can sense from what you are saying, but it's just poorly designed as a system that it is not that robust, but it has a tons of utility advantage over many other blockchain, right?
Yeah, so for me, I'm a crypto skeptic. I was a beginner to DeFi. I'm not a big fan. I'm not the type of person who is easily swayed to invest in any kind of cryptocurrency. I was playing around with DeFi a little bit to get to know how it works, and I wanted to participate in liquidity pools, and I was asking a lot of questions here and there. And Terra, just from the user interface, just from the design and the front end, everything worked very seamlessly. It looked good. It was easy to use. You just download the Terra Station, which is their wallet, and you can pretty easily get UST or Luna or whatever you want. So it looked very good, and I think they did a pretty good job in the design of that. Of course, the under the hood, it wasn't, the pack was not robust. In hindsight, we know that, but many of the other things they did from the perspective of a normal user like me, I think they did a pretty good job.
Interesting. That's super insightful. And do you have any kind of experience with discussion on their Discord and the kind of Telegram community? Is that a very vibrant community or anything?
If you're asking me, I was in the official Terra Discord, and the people there were pretty chill. Actually, I'll tell you something interesting. Okay, I already told you a story before that I posted some warnings about UST that were dismissed in Terra. And I never want to assume anything, and I don't want to assume bad faith. So I'm not saying they're scammers or they knew that the risks were big, but they lied to me. I don't think it's like that. I was chatting with the admins, and I really think that back then, this was just 3 weeks ago, literally. I think they advised me the best they could, and they believed that the warnings were worthy of being dismissed. And but there was something interesting, okay? Because I invested some money in UST right before it depecked in the 2 weeks before it. And I was spending time in the Terra Discord to see what questions are other people asking. Maybe they have some questions that I didn't even think of. So I'm gonna just listen in and look at the text conversations. And there was one guy, and he seemed like he knew what he was talking about. Okay, he was sort of like arguing back and forth with the Terra people there, the admins, and also the people in favor of UST, and he was warning them about a death spiral. And eventually, the conversation went on for like 24 hours, and I read all the way back. At some point, I woke up, I was checking Discord, and I saw the whole conversation. They were going back and forth, and I'm no expert on this, so I cannot say I understood everything they said. But he was a skeptic, and he felt that a depegging scenario, caused by a death spiral, is much more likely than the admins made it seem. And to him, it was just a matter of time before it would happen. And he got banned from the official Terra Discord within like 24 hours of arguing. Yeah.
He got banned.
He got banned, yeah. And again, I don't want to assume bad faith. Like if someone is constantly trying to argue with you and stirring up conversations, and maybe it's sensible to kick him out of the group. But in hindsight, it does look interesting, and I'm sure it has happened more. And we all know, of course, Do Kwon, he did that many times. He's been quite arrogant. Now we only see the bad tweets. Now every arrogant thing he's ever tweeted is now amplified a lot. It's another thing is also pretty difficult. Like imagine if you're a young multimillionaire and everyone is sucking your cock, and you built a company and it's amazing and people are using it and everyone is happy. It's very difficult to not grow an ego around it, right? It's like you're Michael Jackson. So I don't want to defend him, but I understand. I've had a business myself, a way smaller business, and even I, many years ago, almost a decade ago, even I grew a little bit of an ego around it. So when you are building something brand new, you're making something from nothing, and you see it becoming successful, and people are treating you good, and it's very difficult to not grow an ego. So in a very people might hate me for saying this, but I think it's almost impossible to not grow an ego when you build something and it's like your baby and it's successful. Yeah, so I kind of understand that. Of course,
Interesting.
it's not a justification, it's not a valid excuse,
Yeah.
but it's a human thing that happens with many
Yeah, and
founders. Yeah.
unfortunately, Do Kwon, he is just a normal human being, so he's subject to his success, and it's very typical of the period of time when we reach a peak for the bull market, when every actor is very confident about themselves, and they believe that the bull run will continue no matter what, and then that's the moment of the time when we reach the peak, and then when it turns south, we will see a very different reality. And I think it's also very interesting because when we were talking about Meta or Facebook, Zuckerberg, I think he's a very different founder. He didn't got that kind of buoyancy or kind of ego after the company became successful, and he was kind of continuing pushing, keeping humble and pushing into another big idea. So I think that's also a very big contrast. And going back to Terra, I am also very curious about the kind of overall atmosphere when you engage with the conversation. You said that one guy kind of disagreed with the admin for like 24 hours. And I was very curious, is that process how they handled the discussion? Is it very civil and intellectual? They focus on discussing the reasoning process, the thought, instead of attacking over people. Is that what happened? Or is it very chaotic?
You know, in that just before the DPEG, okay. So I was checking the Terra Discord, and there's all kinds of people asking all kinds of questions, of course. But I wouldn't call that chaotic. You can go to any group chat, and that's the same for any place where a lot of people are talking with each other. So, and I also voiced some skepticism. I also proposed some warnings and whatever. And okay, I'm trying to be as neutral as possible. I think they handled it pretty well. Like I cannot say too much bad about it. So this guy that they banned, he was arguing. He was really arguing with everyone for 24 hours, like a whole day straight. And you could see at some point he went to sleep, and 8 hours later he woke up and he started arguing on the Terra Discord with everyone again and warning people about. So yeah, again, I don't want to have bad faith, but yeah, in hindsight, it's interesting. I don't think the. Oh yeah, and another thing after the UST depact, the Terra chat, man, I was looking at it, all day almost. Everyone was panicking. There were so many messages every
Wow.
second posted that they enabled something called slow mode. Slow mode means you can only post one message per. You can set it to 10 seconds or 1 second, one message per minute.
All
In
right.
the official Terra Discord, they changed, the admins changed the rule that every user can only post one message per hour. So if you
Wow.
post something now, you cannot post anything for an hour. So and still there were thousands of people in that Discord trying to figure out answers, trying to ask questions, and the admins weren't saying much. And with this slow mode, only one message per hour, many people were angry. Some people, they sent one message saying, "Hey, what the hell is this? Fuck this slow mode shit. Just let us type. We have things to discuss here." But the admins didn't change it, and people also use the emoji reactions. When
Yeah.
someone writes, for example, like, "Hey, fuck Terra, what is this? We're not getting any answers." People were using emojis because you cannot type. You cannot send any messages. You have to wait an hour. So people were giving it heart reacts, or they were giving clown reacts and whatever. And the admins also disabled the emoji reactions at some point in the general chat. And after 3 days after the PEG event, the admins completely removed the general chat. So right now you
Wow.
cannot send any message in the official Terra Discord. All you can do is read. It's read only. You can see the announcements, and that's it. And they've
That's
basically.
really
Mhm.
that's really a bad practice against the kind of evil of blockchain, isn't it? It's about transparency, being able to speak, and they were kind of reversing all of these great virtue, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. In hindsight, we could say that even though it didn't work out, Terra marketed UST as a very safe stablecoin. And if
Yeah,
you went to ask them questions about it, they would use logic and reason and kindness and communicate very well in a way that you could understand and explain why it is a very safe and good stablecoin. And now, one could use that maybe in evidence in a lawsuit in a court, but now that evidence is gone because the Terra Discord admins have hidden or deleted everything.
yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So they were, yeah, and I think although even if they deleted Discord, I think they can still find the survey dog somewhere else if this eventually became a kind of classified lawsuit against Luna. But oh yeah, and going back to the kind of the chance, do you see any chance that people can get their money back? My direct sense is that it is almost impossible because um,
I think you accidentally muted yourself. You were saying it's almost impossible because, and then you cut out. Uh, but I'll try to answer anyway. So your question was whether people could get their money back, and I think that the chances are not as big anymore. Indeed, and the reason is when Fatman posted his original, now famous proposal on the official Terra forum, in which he explained how 99.7% of UST holders could be made completely whole and receive all their money back. And he used a lot of data and numbers to explain that the vast majority of UST wallets are very small wallets. They're not millionaires or billionaires. They might be holding a few 10,000 or maybe 100,000 in UST, and everyone could be made whole. But since then, new data has come out that Terra has used all their money, all their Bitcoin and other stuff that they have, or not all, but almost all, to defend the peg. So that money is gone. It's basically evaporated, and now there is a little bit of money left. And I don't, I saw Fatman was here listening a little bit earlier. I really wish he could somehow join because he knows a lot more than most of us, of course. Right now, yeah, basically there is very little money left. Whatever money there is left, I think it's worth pursuing. I think it's worth going to court over and making the smallest UST holders whole. Even if it's not that much, it might still be able to help maybe thousands or tens of thousands of people from all over the world. So whatever is left, even if it is very little, I think it's still a fuck ton of money worth going to court over. Right now there is very little money left because most of the Terra funds were used to defend the peg. So much of those bitcoins are sold off and basically evaporated. So there's very little money left. But whatever is left, I think it's still worth going after in either a lawsuit or in some other way to help small UST holders.
and do you see any possibility that they can create a lawsuit against Dokwan or Terra, the company behind it, which is a Singapore company?
Um, you're asking me if there's any point in a lawsuit going after Terra or
Yeah,
Dokwan? Well,
yeah,
absolutely. I'm sure Terra still, even if they have very little money, they might still have many millions or even tens of millions of dollars or maybe even more. I'm not sure. And Dokwan is probably still loaded. He's rich. People have many UST holders have killed themselves. Others are contemplating killing themselves. Others are suicidal and depressed, and they lost all their life savings. Some of those life savings took generations to build. Imagine some people who DM'd me, they didn't just lose a few years of savings, they lost inheritance that they received from their deceased grandfather or father or whatever. So the extreme pain it caused is just incredible. And I feel that Do Kwon, since I wish he would make his main focus to make UST holders whole. But since that's not his focus, maybe people have to go to court and force him to focus on that. And I think whatever is left to the last cent, I absolutely think it makes sense. and there's so many lawsuits all over the world. I've seen lawsuits from only French people where they're gathering French UST holders to sue Do Kwon and Terra, and there's many Korean ones, and of course Fatman is leading the which I think is the biggest lawsuit for all English speakers, like in Western countries.
Yeah, that's so strange. So that's the implication of the moment when he chose Luna over UST. Essentially, when everyone was believing that this is a peg that is impossible to break, and then he now made the decision that it's Luna, it's not UST. So he is kind of backing away from his original promise.
Yes, yeah, it's he's dismissing it. Honestly, I did not think of this. Yeah, he had a bit of an ego. Yeah, he was little bit arrogant here and there, but to be so blamed for the suffering that he has caused, I'm not sure. That seems very strange. I suspect maybe he has lawyers that advised him to not apologize, maybe because when you apologize, you're basically admitting guilt, or maybe there's something else going on. But it just seems very strange how quickly he is dismissing it and moving on to Terra version 2, which most people don't give a fuck about.
Those, well, right. So that's your expectation for Terra 2.0, right?
I don't know. Like maybe it'll be a success, but it doesn't make sense to when you make so much problems. You have to solve those problems first, and then move on to Terra version 2. So there is Terra version 2 might be a good thing to do, but it's not the right order of events. First things first, make small UST holders whole again, and try to make the bigger UST holders as whole as you can as well. Once you've done that, you will have a lot of trust. People will know that at least you have good intentions, and then you can say, then you can move on to building Terra version 2. It just seems
Yeah,
completely out of touch to me to focus on that right now.
that's right. And we have one listener who is called KRGA. And dear listeners, feel free to do the request and ask us questions or do the comment. KRGA, you can speak right now. Can you unmute?
Hi, gents. Thank you. Sure. I mean,
Hi.
I fully agree with Persian Capital. Man, really spot on. And also in corporate world, debt comes first, equity comes last, and the UST in this form is obviously that. So from this perspective, that should be made whole first. Yeah. That being said, there has been tweets about exchanges being also partially made responsible for USD holders as they advertised it as a safe stable coin without pointing out the risk. Maybe any news on that?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right.
My apologies. My apologies. I was briefly distracted and I didn't get the question, and I don't know to who it was addressed.
To anybody who might have catch something material, basically, if the exchanges who have marketed UST and obviously also sold OST will face any charges, and which would push them to make UST holders whole, or to some extent at least. I think there has been a Brazilian case. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, there was indeed a Brazilian exchange who voluntarily, I think they proposed making UST holders on their exchange whole again, which is amazing. There was not even a lawsuit needed. Mm-hmm. But I know that Fatman's lawsuit not only includes people who are holding it on the Terra blockchain and in Anchor protocol, but includes a whole list of people who held it on Binance and Kraken and other exchanges. So those lawsuits are definitely in the making. Mm. And I'll reveal something else too. Do Kwon recently messaged me, and we were chatting a little bit about how to make UST holders whole. And I'm sharing this because I don't think it's a big secret. I don't think it's something he would demand to keep private or something. But he felt that many of the small UST holders are not holding it in on the Terra chain or in Anchor protocol, but are actually holding it on centralized exchanges and apps. And I asked him why he thinks that, and he explained that to deal with the actual Terra chain and the Anchor protocol requires a little bit of DeFi knowledge, and those people are slightly more sophisticated, and they might also have more money. But any idiot can install an app from the App Store and register an account and buy some UST. So there are, if you really want to, if you really truly care about making the smallest UST holders whole, you have to include the centralized exchanges, because a lot of the small holders were holding it not on the chain but on a centralized exchange.
Yeah, exactly. And what's his reply to what you're saying? Did he express any kind of level of compassion for small retail investors?
In my conversation with Do Kwon, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so we didn't talk that much. I'm not very close to him or something. He just wanted to pick my mind, as he called it, and we chatted a little bit. And he shared. He told me that he thinks that a lot of the smallest holders are holding it not necessarily on the Terra chain, but on apps and centralized exchanges.
But Persian,
Yeah, that's a very bad decision.
sorry, I
I
think
think.
this is also
And I'll
twofold.
add that. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think this is twofold. It depends when you look at it, because if you look at the pack, obviously a lot of capital flew to centralized exchanges. So you anyhow need to capture this because of obviously the whole shitstorm. Yeah, not necessarily because it most of the small holders wouldn't be that crypto or technology native.
Sorry, I'm not sure if I understood that.
Yeah, of course. So basically, after the DPEG, a lot of money was moved to the exchanges, regardless if the trade was made or not for another stablecoin or whatever asset. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, yeah. A lot of people have said that indeed, that after the DPEC they moved it to a centralized exchange.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, I missed the connection, but I guess the kind of conversation is around the centralized exchange. I think the most retail investors, they are clearly on the exchange instead of using the kind of sophisticated on-chain applications. And also, just looking at the number of users active on Discord and the Telegram, I think they are on scale of like 100 compared to the actual UST holder. Is that a correct sense?
Yeah, that may be. Yeah, go on, Persian.
Oh no! Again, I didn't understand the question, so you go on if you want.
No, I think that the idea was that the smallest wallets are really on the exchanges as not being that crypto native or technology native, which might be a very fair point. Yeah, and you wouldn't catch that on the on-chain data only. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm very curious about your assessment of for the scale of the impact, because right now, if you take a look at the number of people on the Telegram, it's about like 13,000 people. But to me, it seems like it's the scale, the number of people impacted is more than like 10,000 people. So do you have any kind of estimate about the scale of this downfall?
You know, from Fatman's original proposal that he posted on the official Terra forum, he had done some research, and Fatman said that there were 257,000 UST wallets. So that's 257,000 wallets. Now, there might be some people who have multiple wallets, of course. I only had one wallet. However you want to spin it, it does seem like tens of thousands of people at the very least, and most likely over 100,000 or maybe even over 200,000 people are affected by this.
That's huge. That's really huge, and I think it really makes sense. And I think it's also typical of the issue with the decentralized community, because on one hand you want to make sure that it is decentralized as much as you can, but it's very difficult to make it a democracy-like system, because a lot of people, they are just not engaged. They were the user, but they were not talking directly with a developer. And that may be what created the eventual result, which is Do Kwon chose Luna over UST.
Yep. Yeah.
And yeah, and I think then we can move on to the next. We are getting close to the ending, and I'm very curious about what you find most striking when you are hearing the complaints from UST guys. I'm sure you are super busy listening to the lots of complaints.
Oh yeah, for me, I think the people who lost a tiny bit are not going to message some random person on Twitter that they lost a little bit. So many of the messages I received were quite extreme. People were showing me all kinds of stuff related to this event. I really received a lot of fucked up and yeah, very bad messages of people who were extremely sad about this. A lot of people were depressed. A lot of people couldn't sleep anymore. They were taking pills. Many of them were taking some kind of medicine all of a sudden, and many people felt ashamed. There was a guy, for example, he felt that he told me that he lost so much of his savings that he doesn't have the balls to tell his wife what happened, and he feels emasculated. He feels that his manlyhood is taken away because he had both of his wife's and his own life savings in UST. All of a sudden, you can understand it's going to have a psychological effect, and it's going to have a real life effect on your relationship with your wife. And there were many of such stories. There was a man from Pakistan who lost his savings, and he had an inheritance, and he had invested that inheritance in UST, and his mother had died previously, and he showed me the evidence. Like, he showed me his Instagram profile with videos and pictures of his mom's funeral. So the people who message me are generally the most desperate people who are really, really depressed. I don't want to say everyone is like this. I had a tiny amount of money in UST. For me, I didn't lose any sleep over it. In fact, I feel like I learned a very big lesson for a very small price. So I'm not going out there and messaging random people. The messages I received have some bias in them.
Yeah, that's so heartbreaking to hear. We have another listener, V Pool. Do you have any question to speak of? Right, maybe he is kind of disconnected.
Hello, Vipul. If you're here, you're allowed to speak now. You can unmute yourself. And if anyone else wants to come up and ask a question or share a story or share whatever you feel that you want to share, you can do that.
Yeah, we got another two listeners. Chrissy, do you have anything to speak?
Hi guys. Yeah, I came in a little late, so I apologize. But I'm kind of new to Luna. Obviously, I got more involved once the crash happened. No fault of mine. It just was everywhere, and now I went in a little deep. This isn't about like price predictions or anything like that, but I wanted to get your thoughts, because this seems like a really solid group, on where you think the potential is, or if there is any opportunity for Luna Classic to survive. Like, has this been touched upon? I'm sure it has a million times over, but I just jumped in, so I apologize. I'm just trying to get your thoughts on if this is sort of like a sinking ship, or if you do see potentially some opportunity here, like not just about price, but about utility and such.
Well, I think we can going back to the quote from CZ of the founder and CEO of Binance. I think he made a great comment back when UST was in the crash mode. He basically said that you should stop the minting process. You should stop the entire running of blockchain immediately when the crash happened. And that was, I think that was the last chance that Terra 1.0 as a project had a realistic opportunity to survive. Because before that, the total amount of issuance for Luna was going from more than 300 million into 1 billion and then into 10 billion. But now it is over 6.5 trillion. So it's impossible for any Luna holder to expect, even if they can get the price back to $1 without any kind of combination. Say you get 1 new Luna token for your existing holding of say 1 million Luna holding. So I think the entire project right now is failed, and it's very unlikely to get back anything, especially after I have listened to Amin, the Persian capital, his comment over what's happening right now with the Discord. Right now, I think the community is really dissipating because they cannot talk. Everyone can only send one message for 1 hour, and that I think once the consensus, the support is broken, then it's very hard to get back. So, I mean, what's your perspective?
Yeah. So in the official Terra Discord, you cannot even post at all. It's not even the 1 hour limit. Like no one can post. But going back to Chrissy, to your question, Chrissy, about Luna. So that's not UST. That's Luna. Some people conflate the two. I hope people understand that UST is a very different beast from Luna. So UST is the stable coin that was supposed to be pegged to the US dollar, and Luna is a very volatile and much more speculative cryptocurrency that was designed to absorb the peg in UST. And I think, Chris, your question was whether there was any hope for Luna, like the original Luna. And my answer is honestly, I have no idea. I know very little about cryptocurrencies, and the thing that I'm interested in is fiat currency, and by extension, I'm interested in stable coins because they're supposed to remain pegged to a fiat currency. So about Luna, I cannot say anything meaningful, but maybe someone else is willing to chip in their thoughts. I've heard from other smart people though, some people were asking like, hey, should I buy Luna right now because it dropped so much? And the general consensus among smart people seems to be no. It's even more speculative now, and I'm not sure if it will ever go back up to $1 or $100 again.
Yeah, I would just say again, the total amount of issuance for Luna is 6.5 trillion now. So back when it was trading at like $80 per Luna, the total issuance was like 343 million in total. So right now, if you are going to expect Luna to be trading back to even just $1 per Luna, you have to expect the entire market capitalization of the entire project is more than 6.5 trillion. It's almost more than 1/3 of US GDP, and is like more than 3 times the market capitalization of Apple, which is the biggest company at the moment, who is making hundreds of billions of profits every year. So to me, that's a non-brainer, and the only possibility is that maybe they can roll back before Luna got issued, and maybe roll back the total circulation back to less than 1 billion. But with the announcement of Terra 2.0, I think the chance is close to zero, as I can think of. Right. I think we are very close to the end. If you guys have any question, feel free to request to speak.
I have a question for you, Simon. If you don't mind sharing and disclosing, and if you don't want to share, that's also of course
Right.
okay. Of
Yeah,
course.
go ahead.
Did you have any exposure to Terra or UST or Luna?
No, actually, I had zero exposure. I had a little bit exposure to MakerDAO. So that was back in 2018. But overall, I wasn't very interested in this kind of project because overall, I am a first principle thinker. And to me, it doesn't make sense. The entire project doesn't add too much value. I know that there is certain amount of value whereby you can peg your dollar and make it trade more freely. But back to the first principle, does it really add tremendous amount of value to the user? Does it worth more than 40 US billion market cap because of the value that you are creating to the actual user? So to me, it's a no-brainer that this project is overly hyped and is a bubble in a bubble territory. And it's more so after I'm seeing that people were kind of getting the false promise that the peg is impossible to break. So yeah, that's just my sense.
That's
And
very wise of you.
yeah. I am speaking of this from kind of the equity research perspective. So I'm thinking of this as a company, although in reality, this is not a company even, it's just a decentralized organization.
Yeah, that's very good. You know, I also I've been interested in equities since I was very young, so I know how a stock is valued to some degree, and there must be some revenues and some profits, and eventually there must be dividends. Without a dividend, a stock has absolutely no value. And the only reason why, let's say, a company like Google has value, even though it does not pay a dividend, is because it could pay a very high dividend in the near future if it ever chose to do so. And so from that is also what causes much of my skepticism to cryptocurrencies, is that it's basically just random numbers. There is no revenues, there is no products or services or happy customers. People are just buying random numbers on a computer and hoping for it to go up and sell it to a greater fool at a higher price.
Yeah, that's a great segue into our previous conversation over the value of Bitcoin, the various blockchain projects. I think we should kind of separate the discussion around that because for me, Bitcoin is a totally decentralized project that has been super successful, considering that the entire network was online for like more than 13 years without one major outbreak, one major attack. That's proving its value. So, but for other projects like Terra, it's a different topic. And again, it can be tested by time. So that's a huge contrast if you compare Bitcoin with Ethereum, with Terra. So Ethereum, it got started for like 8 years, and it had one super fatal huge attack back in sometime 2016. And then Terra, so it got started like a 2-year-old, and then it got a fatal attack, and now it's disappeared. So Bitcoin, it has its special status. I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist, but I'm trying to make sense out of it. So for me, it's a pretty financial vertical specific concept because right now what we are using with United States dollar, US dollar, it's we the kind of value backstop for the US dollar is nothing. It's actually the law. The United States government forces you to use US dollar, and that so that means if everyone is going to support Bitcoin as the de facto standard of value in the future, then it has a possibility to replace US dollar. And I also heard an analysis from the BitMEX, the co-founder of BitMEX. His argument was that the Fed, the Federal Reserves, the Central Bank of the United States, their policy is very clear. They want to create more money to allow the United States government to issue more bonds and cover the fiscal deficit. So in that case, you would expect your fiat currency, your United States dollar, continue to depreciate year over year. But Bitcoin supply is fixed at 21 million. So if we are going to see this kind of scenario, the relative overissuance of United States dollar to go on, then Bitcoin has its value, especially if it can continue to run without any major hack.
Guys.
Oh, hi.
Hey, I've got one more question to you. How do you think does second Luna chain has some real value for the first half of the year when the half of year cliff lasts? Because the supply, the initial floating supply, will be limited with about 150 million tokens, and isn't it the issue that Duke One can pump it up to $100 or $200 per token? How do you think?
I mean, maybe you can answer this question. I'm not so sure about that.
My honest answer is I don't know, and I think it's okay to say I don't know when I truly don't know. So I'm a bit of a crypto skeptic. I don't have a lot of knowledge in tokenomics. So I've always stayed away from general cryptocurrencies, and I've only dabbled a little bit in stablecoins, but I know very little about how to value or add value to a cryptocurrency. It does seem, we can see that Do Kwon is really hyping the new Luna up, and he's retweeting any developer and builder who is building for the new Terra. But what will happen, I have honestly no idea. If anyone here has an idea, feel free to come up and share.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have too much idea about it as well. So far, I think Do Kwon, what he really needs to do is to rebuild the confidence. Without the confidence, then the entire decentralized project won't work. So that, I think that's the first principle he has to deal with. And we have another speaker, Sina. Can you unmute
Hi.
yourself and speak?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I have a question. We know that after Luna crash, some people bought millions of Luna, and then Terra Foundation proposed a voting for Luna 2. The people who voted for Luna 2 are the people who bought so much Luna. Then I think it's unfair. Do you have any idea about this? And is it true the way I'm thinking about it?
Well, you think it's unfair because you bought. Did you buy Luna after it crashed?
I bought, but when it was about $0.03.
Yeah, so you know, at that point, Luna was always a very volatile and speculative asset. After it crashed, you could buy a whole fuck ton of Luna for just a few dollars, and a lot of people gambled in that. In fact, I never do that, and even I bought a fuck ton of Luna, and I never do any of this gambling. But you could buy so much Luna. But I have no idea whether it's fair or not. I don't really understand how it works, but I think the people who hold and stake Luna, they can vote on the proposals, and they overwhelmingly voted in favor of the new Luna, if I understand it correctly, at least. So I don't know what you find unfair about that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I bought Little Luna actually, about $20. But I mean, I think it's unfair for the people who bought Luna before the crash, because they have less Luna, and uh, the people who bought Luna after the crash, they have millions of Luna. So they can vote. Their vote uh will have more impact on the Luna too. They have more
You,
right.
you win some and you lose some when you make a speculative trade. Sometimes it doesn't work out, and I don't know if it's unfair. It's unfortunate, but I don't know if it's unfair. We also have a Specie right now wanting to speak. Go ahead, Specie.
Yeah, I just had a real quick question. So I bought Luna. I don't know if you guys just went over this, but I was trying to figure out, do you have to get it out of a centralized exchange to receive the new 2.0s, or is it okay to be in a DeFi wallet or a centralized exchange?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the very brief question, Specie. So from Do Kwon's tweets, he tweeted a few times now, and people asked him the same question, that he wants to include Luna holders on centralized exchanges, if I got it correctly at least. But I'm not sure if there's many details released, like which exchanges. Probably Binance will be included, but what if you hold it on some tiny exchange from Poland or whatever? Will that be included? I'm not sure. There's still a lot of questions about that and very little communication and clarification. If someone else knows, feel free to chip in.
Yeah, I think you should work like an airdrop. You would take a snapshot shot of where who are the holders of one address, and then distribute it. And then it comes to the responsibility of the centralized exchanges. They have to distribute these airdropped new tokens to each previous holders proportionally. So that's the issue with the exchanges, and obviously bigger exchanges like Binance, they would make it work more smoothly.
Okay. Thank you, guys. And my last question is, say if so I was trying to use that wormhole, but it wasn't showing. It was only showing my balance when I was putting it in one of those other settings. It wasn't showing it. So right now I have it on a DeFi Coinbase wallet. Is it okay to sit right there? Do you guys know that?
I honestly don't know. Maybe someone else knows.
Yeah, I don't know that either.
It does show that there's so many questions. This same question that you have, Mr. Specie, I've seen that hundreds of times in similar questions on Twitter, and there's very little communication from Terra about this. So much of the retweets are about Terra version 2. Look at all the builders who are supporting Terra 2 and whatever. They should really communicate and release some statements about all the questions that people have around this. So all our eyes are on them.
Yeah, I just cannot agree.
Especially, I guess the sexes are making one per one posts how they are about to do that. I saw that Binance went disclosed already how they plan to distribute that. What they haven't disclosed though is how they plan to address if you had staked Luna with them. That's still open, but I would presume we need to give them some time to figure that out.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
I'll drop down. Thank you, guys.
Cheers.
Great, and we have another speaker in hindsight. Can you just unmute yourself and speak?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, brilliant. So my question is like, basically what's going to happen after the airdrop, basically. So, I mean, there's not much communication on it, but will we still see Luna and UST on the centralized exchange? I kind of doubt it because I just checked on Binance and they kind of delisted it already, although Anchor for some reason is still on there. So any idea? Are we expecting to see people, like there's a lot of talks and tweets about people dumping UST or Luna straight after the snapshot. So I'm just wondering, what's going on basically.
Yeah, I think that is one possibility whereby people just completely lose their confidence over the Terra 2.0. But basically, what's happening right now is that the Luna and the Terra Foundation, they want to do a complete reset. They don't want to kind of solve their previous issue. They just want to leave all of these issues behind and then start a new project from ground up. But a portion of the ownership of this new project, the Terra 2.0, will be owned by the previous supporter of Luna and the Terra. So that's where the airdrop is going to come in. I mean, what's your take?
Yeah, so again, I follow very little about cryptocurrency, so I don't know much about this, but I've also heard that anyone who held Luna or UST, either on the Terra chain or on centralized exchanges, will be airdropped the new version 2 shitcoin that they are releasing soon. But yeah, I don't know the details about it, and I personally never held any Luna except for a tiny bit that I bought after it crashed, just for the fun of it.
Great. We have another speaker, Marvin Natic. Can you unmute yourself and speak? It seems like all right, we have another speaker. Hi, Andros. Can you unmute yourself and speak?
Go ahead, Andros. You can speak, Andros. You can unmute yourself and say something if you want.
Remember to press unmute when you are speaking.
Nothing from him, it seems.
Yeah, maybe we can move on to the final topic, which I'm going to cover. I think UST is a pretty good example of the way how the actual banking system works, because basically central banks, they also don't have anything on their back, but the legal enforcement from the country, whereby they can issue credit and issue money with stroke of pen within the thin air. So I think it's also kind of unfair for US Terra for them to see that they are facing the liquidity issue while the central banks, they can just lever up and again. So that's what we typically see every time during the economic crisis. So if you kind of measure the leverage, the actual amount of assets within central bank across the world, and measure it against the money they have printed to commercial banks, I think their leverage is about at least 10x. So theoretically, the Terra Foundation, they have say 3 billion of assets in terms of Bitcoin. They should have leveraged it up 10x and provided with unlimited liquidity support. But this is not the actual banking system. This is decentralized finance. So you are kind of on your own, and there's no one kind of the to help when there is a crisis. What's your sense? I mean,
yeah, you mentioned central banking. It's not a subject that I'm an expert on, but in the crypto, amongst the crypto bros, there's a lot of conspiracies going on about central banking and inflation, and I see that a lot amongst my friends. They are missing vital context. They are missing nuances about central banking, and I wish there was better education, especially amongst the crypto bros, because they are often sometimes living in a bubble, which can happen, of course. But yeah, there is a reason why people need US dollars when in the end a lot of us consume American goods and services, and at some point you have to use US dollars to get those goods and services. So there is natural demand for US dollars. With UST, there is some demand, but it's just mostly people looking for yield. We want to get 19% on Anchor protocol. So there is some demand, of course. There was quite a lot of demand, but it's not for goods and services. And that's another thing, somewhat unrelated. When I was playing around with DeFi the last few months, I was learning a lot. I was asking a lot of questions. I was putting a little bit of money here and there, in mostly in liquidity pools to see how it works, how you can deposit money and withdraw money. And I saw so many transactions going on all these different blockchains. And the thing that flabbergasted me is that with all these millions of transactions in DeFi, there was still not a single good or service sold. It's all just an almost meaningless everyone is just looking for yield. Everyone is just trying to make a buck. And no one is selling any goods and services. It's crazy.
Exactly. That's what I'm sensing as well. So that's the reason why I don't really play with Luna, because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't create value that justifies its market capitalization of more than 40 billion US dollars. And also, it sounds very much like a Ponzi scheme to me, because the project itself is not sustainable before the downfall, because they were basically paying 6% interest premium to the depositors who use trolls UST over US dollar, which saved in your bank. So a brief recap: there is one protocol called Anchor on UST, which allows you to gain a 20% interest rate, although their borrow rate is about 20%, so they have to pay that 8% gap by themselves. So the more people deposit the money, the more the Luna Foundation they have to pay to compensate for that gap. So for me, that's totally unsustainable.
Just to play the devil's advocate, it is indeed unsustainable, and they've never made a secret of that. But just because just because that 19 or 20% yield was unsustainable, doesn't necessarily mean it's a Ponzi. Of course, there's many things right now that are unsustainable, but it doesn't mean it's a Ponzi. And the Terra official answer was that yes, this yield is unsustainable. Right now, we have a fuck ton of money laying around, and we are propping up the Anchor reserves to give you a much higher yield that you would organically get. Organically, you would get maybe 5 or 6% from borrowers, but we're subsidizing a lot of the yield, because we want to attract people to get familiar with the Terra ecosystem and buy UST and install the Terra Station wallet and see how everything works. So they were subsidizing it in order to attract people, and this was never meant to be sustainable. They have been, at least to my perception, and I was researching this a little bit a few weeks ago. They were pretty open about that it's never meant to be sustainable.
Yeah, we have another speaker.
Just let me chip in on the Persian in your comments. I think coming from traditional banking, which you previously meant, this fiasco could be easily avoided, because if you go to the bank and say, okay, I want to deposit money, you for some period of time mostly cannot withdraw it, and this would prevent the exact bank run that happened. Yeah.
Very good point. Yeah, if they had better limits about how many people can withdraw at once, or maybe there was a lock-in period, maybe it could have been prevented in this.
Yeah. Did you post? Can you unmute yourself?
Degen Post, you're live. You can talk now if you want. I think he's AFK or something.
Yeah, I think so. And going back to the kind of value of Terra discussion, do you see any kind of realistic value for the Terra? To me, it seems like they just want to shift the banking operation, the commercial bank, what they do, to a blockchain. But there isn't too much value added for me personally. And as a technology analyst, when we are accessing the disruptive technologies, we have one key measurement, which is to calculate the return over investment for the new solution. So right now, what I'm seeing is that the cost of switching from using a normal commercial bank into Terra, and then the potential risk of Terra from depegging or the system is breaking, I think it doesn't worth it for a normal person to switch from using a commercial bank to Terra. And for the foreseeable future, I don't really think it makes sense, other than if you are doing things like money laundering or things that you want to avoid the law or the compliance. So for me personally, that's a very strange project. And yeah, I think they are very clear that they want to compensate early users with 8% interest rate premium. But at the end of the day, they have to generate revenue, and they either have to charge processing fees like the Visa and MasterCard, like 2%, or they have to deliver other superior value proposition. They have to invest in projects that can generate higher return and then make the capital, the cash flow for the users. What's your thinking? I mean,
as you mentioned, it's not worth the risk. And even if there was let's say, a better alternative built that was a lot more robust, and I think so many people right now that saw this happening, that the DPEC happened. I was also tracking a bunch of liquidity pools in the last few weeks, and so much money left the whole ecosystem of DeFi. A lot of people in DeFi, they are a little bit shocked that this happened, and they don't know what to trust and who to believe anymore. So it seems like many people are taking a step back. It's hard to imagine right now, but just a few weeks ago, UST and Anchor Protocol was one of the most battle-tested protocols on the planet. It had something like $14 billion in total value locked. So imagine at some point, even if it has 20 million or 100 million dollars in value locked, that means that hackers are trying to hack it and steal that $20 million. If it grows to 100 million, then you can be basically sure that not one, but maybe 10 or 20 different hackers have tried to get that $100 million. And Anchor Protocol had like over $14 billion in it, and it had no hack. It was super battle tested, and it had existed for like 2 years. And in 2 years in DeFi is a long time. It's like dog years. It counts as a lot more than in real life. So when this thing blew up, a lot of people are taking a step back. And I think there's nothing wrong with just having a lot of cash just sitting in your bank account right now. If you live in a Western democracy, luckily we can just put it in a bank account and sleep well until until the dust settles. And same for me. I was looking into putting some money in liquidity pools. I was just playing around with it with tiny sums of money. And now that this happens, luckily I didn't lose a lot. And now I'm thinking, you know what, fuck it. I don't think I'm gonna do it because the risk is just simply not worth it.
Yeah, that's a valid point. We have another speaker, Slim Jesus. Can you unmute yourself?
Hi, thanks for the space. Forgive me if this is a redundant question. I just chimed in, but I've got about 23 grand tied up on Voyager right now in Luna. I bought post crash, of course, like everybody else. But should I have moved this to the Terra chain, or or do I just wait to see what happens? Is it going to come back on the Voyager app? I know you're not specific to the Voyager, but I mean, am I holding a dead token here, or?
Voyager is not a centralized app. It's a DeFi protocol. Is that right?
Voyager
Or is...
is centralized. Yeah, it's centralized because
Oh, it's centralized.
Yeah.
I don't know. Has there been an official statement from Voyager? I know that Do Kwon has at least tweeted that he's trying to collaborate with these centralized exchanges in order to include everyone for the airdrop. But yeah,
There's
I
been a
don't know.
few
I will
emails,
try to
there's been a
email
few
Voyager.
transmissions and emails. I've been trying to pull it together and figure out the hard answer, which I can't. So I'm just trying to collect the dots to connect them. But if I lose this money, so be it. I made out really well. But if I don't, then I'm just kind of excited to see what happens. This is truly a wild moment, and I'm just excited about either outcome. To be honest with you, it's a moment for sure. We've never seen anything like this, and we never will again. So anyway, that's all I wanted to ask you.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess I'll just wait and see what happens. I didn't want to move anything, the YouTubers were saying, "Hey, move your shit to the Terra chain." I didn't want to do that because it's not usually historically a good idea to listen to YouTubers. But
Yeah, I've heard similar stories. People when UST depegged a little bit, like let's say to 99 cents. At first, people thought like, oh, it's gonna go back up. It has depegged to 99 cents before, and then it starts crashing more to 80 cents and 70 cents. And a lot of people they just froze. I'm not saying this is you necessarily, but for many people, like when you don't know what to believe or who to trust, what can you do? Like if you do make a decision, maybe it could be another mistake. So a lot of people just froze and let it ride, and some people are still holding everything until today.
Yeah, especially if you don't have the right information on which you could act on.
So, well, listen, I appreciate you answering my question, really just letting me vent about it. And then everybody have a great day, whatever happens, we're all here for it. And it's not boring, that's for sure. So, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, Slim.
Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah. So right. I think to wrap it up, for me, it seems like this is like a 2008 event for the crypto world. Everyone doesn't trust their counterparty, and there is a huge amount of counterparty risk, and everyone is kind of going to protect themselves, which eventually could be a very great death spiral. And it's very interesting to see how this event is going to unfold. And right now we are seeing it continue to be chaotic. Emin, do you have any final words to say?
Yeah, just be careful out there. I hope everyone learns a lesson. Even I think many people who never invested in UST, I think everyone is seeing this right now, and everyone learned a lesson. Try to diversify, even if something is battle tested and even if it seems safe. If you've invested for a long time, you can know that the thing that people deem impossible can always happen. And then on top of that, there's even things that you never even thought of that aren't even on your list of warnings and threats and risks that could also happen. So these sort of like black swan events, maybe black swan is not the right term, because in DeFi, black swans are about as common as white swans, ironically enough. There's black swans every day. So, but in general, whether it's in DeFi or in just when you're buying stocks and bonds or something else, try to size your position in a way that every asset class, if it were to somehow go to zero, you will survive another day. Try to not make if you really love a certain stock or something, try to not put more than 5% of your money in it. And there's always stories of people who they bought a fuck ton of Tesla stock. They went in 100% in Tesla stock. They were all their money in Tesla, and they're now multi-millionaires. Yeah, those are the people who got quite lucky, or maybe they were smart. But that's a lot of confirmation bias and hindsight bias in those stories. For each one of those stories, there's thousands of people who lost betting so big in a single thing, and we never hear those stories because people are ashamed to come out, of course. So try to reflect about what you can learn from this.
Yeah, risk control should be always on top of everyone's mind, and you shouldn't be betting too much that you are not comfortable with within the cryptocurrency world. And I think it's a great wrap up, and hope everyone have a nice day and stay safe. Also, make sure you control your cryptocurrency risk. Black swan could happen every time.
Thank you so much, Simon, for hosting this event, and thank you
Cheers.
everyone else for chipping in. Have a good day. Bye bye.
Yeah, bye.
Bye bye.